So chat to me a bit about growing up and playing rugby and your journey in NZ.
Yeah, man. So growing up in New Zealand, it's safe to say that, rugby is just a huge part of our culture. But for me, even more so, I was born into a family that all rugby was an even bigger part of life than a lot of others, because my uncle was actually the coach of the All Blacks when I was a little kid growing up. Um, he was head coach from 96 through to 99, but he had been like an assistant coach before that. So literally like my whole life, it was a huge part of life. My earliest memories were, um, playing rugby in the park with my dad. So it was my dad's brother who coached All Blacks, and my dad absolutely loved rugby as well. Um, and just, yeah, like some of my best memories in life were rugby. You know, I remember going to play rugby for the first time, how exciting that was, putting on the uniform, couldn't like sleep the night before, so excited. Just the feeling of being out there and with your teammates and your friends, and then having your parents and there to cheer you along, and them being proud of you. And yeah, like I just always had a rugby ball in my hand. I loved it, not just the game. Like it was something that I loved. Like, I had posters on the wall. I had, if there was toys I could get my hand on, um, get those. Just absolutely loved rugby, man. So those are my early memories.
And then when you were a bit older, like as a teenager, did you get into the Blues? I saw you played a bit for them when you were younger.
Yeah, so I grew up just loving rugby, playing it. I don't really, when you're a little kid, you don't really think whether you're good or not. I don't think your like mind, I think your perspective of like good or bad only comes into play at a certain age, and anything in life, most things you're sort of just doing and playing and expressing yourself. um Probably when I was about 13, I made a rep team, and that was like, oh wow, like even getting invited to the trials was cool. And then I remember like my dad was like buzzing about it, and me and him were so excited, didn't expect to make it. um and then again, like going throughout my high school, I made a few rep teams, but I never actually felt that I was that good. Like I always, there was some star players in my rep team growing up in New Zealand, especially, but I'm sure most players can relate. Like there's always those kids who are like, they tear it up, man, and they're stars, and they're like faster and stronger and more skillful. And I was never ever like that at all. I was like, just was so excited to be able to get picked into some of those teams. Um, and it wasn't until probably I was about 17, and I'd played first 15 in school, and I'd made a couple of the Auckland like under 14s, 15s, 16s rep teams, and I never did well in school at all. I have what they call ADHD, and I'm always very apprehensive and careful with how I like use labels and things, because I think a lot of that comes with some negative connotations and is very misunderstood by a lot of people, including like people who are diagnosed with neuro diverse sort of brains, I guess. But it caused me a lot of issue, not being able to pay attention, not being interested in what we're doing, questioning everything, not being able to stay still. And sport and rugby was the place where I felt like the most sense of belonging and freedom. And getting into trouble all the time. At school, I started to like have this like perspective that I was a bad kid, and that I wasn't really worthy of like success. And then on the other side of that, although my uncle was a huge success being the All Blacks coach, and that was something that was so inspiring growing up, to see that. My dad was, he really, really struggled throughout his life. He had a lot of issues with drug addiction, And that was something that really affected like my upbringing and my perspective of like, what I was capable of and what path of life. And because of how he had struggled, we struggled at a lot, in a lot of ways as kids, growing up. So you sometimes inherit, I guess, like limitations and ideas of how good you can be or your value to the world. And then on top of that, I was getting in a lot of trouble at school. But I just remember like this one day, I think I was 17 in school, and everyone was talking about like, what's the plan for like university and like internships. And I had not thought of anything. And I had just been floating through school, mucking around, having fun, trying not to get in trouble, and getting in too much trouble, but just trying to get by. And I remember this day, I was like, man, the real world is coming. Like, and it was the first time I'd actually thought, I was like, school's gonna be done. Like, you can't just keep mucking around. Like, what are you gonna do? And I said to him, I was like, I gotta give this rugby my everything, because I literally sat there and I was like, I don't know what I want to do. And I was like, other than rugby, like there seemed like no pathway. And that was the moment where I was like, I'm just going to give it everything, man. And that year, I didn't actually make the Auckland under-18s, and that was like the first rep team that I didn't make. And I remember like crying, man, like secretly at nighttime, like in my bed, like crying my eyes out because I didn't make the team. And then I was like, what am I going to do? I'm never going to make into an academy now. And, if you don't make the academy, how can you go on to be a pro? And so that was pretty saddening for me, but I still had this drive. I was like, nah, this is my chance to live a good life. I want to just give it everything. I don't know what else I want to put my energy into. And I started like going to the gym for the first time. My brother, he's 3 years older. He had just qualified as a personal trainer. So he got a free pass for a family member or friend. So I just started going gym. I remember going gym like twice a day. I think I went from like 60 kgs up to like maybe 70 in about, it was like something like 4 months, man. I put on like 9 or 10 kgs. And I just remember like protein shakes, tuna and rice, all like just like eating cream rice and like all of this, and getting bigger. And I'll just be at the park doing sprints, doing shuttles in my backyard, working on my passing, working on my kicking down at the park. And I had friends who loved rugby. I had one of my best mates who was a rugby league player. He was really, really talented. He played for the junior Kiwis and the Warriors. He was in contract with the Warriors NRL team. And him and I, like, we used to just do would do sprints. Like our mates would go out on nights out and would park the car in the car park, and our mates would be drinking and we'd be having some beers and stuff, but we'd be like racing. We'd be like, bro, I'll race you to the pole. And we're like sprinting. We'd practice like doing like battling each other out on like side steps. We have like 5-meter channels, but we just loved it. And it was actually making us better, but we were like pushing ourselves. I played touch 3 or 4 times a week for like literally 3 hours, just honing those skills, but just out of the love of playing touch rugby to the light, till it was pitch black. And my brother and I would be emailing all the academy teams in around New Zealand, literally anywhere, man. Like I'd grown up my whole life in Auckland. Auckland was the team my uncle had played for and coached, and the team me and my dad and family supported. So that was my dream, to play for Auckland. But it didn't matter to me, man. I just wanted to get into an academy. I remember emailing literally every academy over and over, and they'd all be like, oh, we're full at the moment, or like we'll keep an eye on Grace and da da da. And then one day, one of the guys from the Auckland Academy called up and he goes, oh, look, there's a New Zealand under 21 trial. You're not in line for the trial, but one of the scrum half has gotten injured and we need a scrum half to just cover just for the trial, like just to cover the spot to play the game. And I was like, yeah, I'll be there. And then me and my dad, we drove out, got there. I mean, we got lost on the way. So I got there late, no more uniforms left. So I had this like 3XL uniform, but it was the trial was the Blues region versus the Chiefs region. So it was like Adidas Super Rugby uniforms. And like there's guys in here who are pro rugby players, you know, trialing for the New Zealand under 21s, like stars, guys who were all in all the academies, and no one knew who I was. Rocked up late. I had my 3XL uniform, my Blues uniform, but I was buzzing to have those 3 stripes in that Blues uniform. And I just remember, man, and actually I spent like literally 3 hours that morning practicing my passing against the fence to make sure I was dialed in. Probably looking back, I probably burned a lot of energy. Maybe half an hour would have been fine. But got there late, shitting myself, my uniform, just fucking buzzing to have it. I remember I was in the second half, so I was going to play 40 minutes and shitting myself the whole time. And I literally just went out there. And for me, that was like an opportunity of a lifetime, man. And I literally just tore about everywhere. I reckon I made about like 10 tackles in the first 10 minutes I was on, sprinted to every ruck. And all I was thinking of was just like, get to the ruck, get the ball away quick, and I'm going to make every tackle I can. I'm going to communicate well. And then it went by so quickly, and I was so immersed in just like ripping in that I didn't have a perspective of how well or not I did. But then after the game, like 3 or 4 people came up, and one was the academy coach, and then one was my dad, and one was like another player. And then they were like, man, like you went hard, bro. Like you ripped it up, man. I was like, oh, thanks, man. I just like love being out there. And Pat Lamb, who was the current Auckland coach, he was the last one that came up to me. He was like, oh, mate, you know, you played bloody well. I want to invite you to the Auckland NPC. I can't remember what it was called back then, but you know, like the provincial was like it's called like Mitre 10 Cup or ITM Cup. They keep changing it. I want to invite you to the preseason training. And I was like 18, not in an academy, no job, just training at my local gym with my brother, drinking my protein shakes, doing my passing against the fence. And then when he said that to me, I was like, wow, this was the Auckland team I'd grown up loving. Like, and at this point, they had guys like Sam Tuitapo, Ali Williams, John Afoa, Jerome Kaino, Doug Howlett, who were actually playing in that team. And I was just like, wow. And I just went there for preseason training, and they had a group of must have been about 50 players. And I was like, I'm just so happy to be here, man. And if I can train here and impress them, maybe I'll get my academy contract that I've been dreaming to try get. And I remember, I somehow just got selected in the team as one of the 3 scrum halves. And then actually game one, Steve Devine, who was like one of the most capped Auckland and Blues scrum halves of all time, leader of the team, unbelievable player, played for the All Blacks. He took a head knock, and then round 2 I was in, and I was on the bench, and I got game time, and it was like within a couple months, I went from crying that I had not made my under 18s team, not getting any love from any academies, training down at the local, leisure center, not really knowing what to do, doing like 12 sets of bench and bicep curls and stuff to try and get bigger. And then, it was a whirlwind, man, but it was literally like a dream come true. So, and then from there, I got a contract pretty much right away. I played that whole season. I probably started maybe 3 or 4 games, but I came off the bench throughout that Auckland season, most games. And then we won the tournament. We won the Mighty 10 Cup. We won the Ranfurly Shield. We went undefeated. So it was like a dream season. And then I got a Blues contract. So yeah, that was my initial go into professional rugby.
That's unreal. Congrats. And I love how it just started with a decision, you know, like you're at a crossroads, you just make that decision or made that decision that this is something you're going after.
Yeah, man. It was, I think there's times in my life, and I'm sure lots of people can relate to it. It's like there's a conviction that comes from somewhere deeper. It's not like just your thinking. It's like comes from your heart, you know. And I just remember I was like, I'm just going to give it everything, and I want to like not, yeah, like, and there was no pathway for me, like set pathway, but I was down at that park on my own, doing these shuttles and doing practicing my kicking and training at the gym, like honestly, like with the intensity like that, I was All Black, you know. And there was, I truly believe there's something about how you go about things and the way in which you carry yourself that you can create opportunities. Because there was, I don't know why that guy called me up to come and fill in. It was probably because we were pestering him to get me a spot in the academy, but like that was luck that happened, that someone got injured and then that opportunity arose. But I was ready for it, and I was confident, and I was fit, and you know, and I was 2-3 years younger than all the guys trialing for that team, and I was just there to fill the spot. But yeah, I feel that's a lesson for life, you know, like it's how you go about things. It's not waiting for opportunities to be handed that dictate, you know, what your standard is.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And like I say, it's you listen to your heart, and I think then, yeah, when you go all in and when you go after something, things just happen. Things just have a weird way of like falling into your path when you're putting in that work. And I think a big mistake, rugby, life, whatever, I've made it in the past, is you get caught up on how it's going to happen. You get caught up and you start, as you say, you get in your head about, oh, I want to go after this, but then you start thinking about how will it happen? How will it? And like you said with yours, like you're down the leisure center, like there's how, like you didn't even know what the next step was, but you just knew what it was in your heart, or you know, not in your head, that what you had to do, and you just go after it.
Yeah, man, that's it. And like I had an objective that I was clear. I didn't exactly know, but I knew that there were things I could do right now that would make me feel fulfilled in the knowledge that I was doing what I could do. And yeah, I mean, I feel in times in my life where I've not been feeling content or fulfilled, I think that it's too much worrying about, you know, all of the things that are out of your power that need to unfold in order to reach an objective, rather than being like, okay, this is my objective, this is my goal, and this is what's in front of me, and this is what today holds. And if I can start my day and then end my day by looking in the mirror and being proud of like how I've carried myself, but also know that things aren't always going to be perfect, and you can look yourself in the mirror and be like, okay, but I can improve that, you know, or I got that wrong today, and that's okay. I'm going to go tomorrow again, you know. I do think it is something that sport teaches people. I know people can learn these lessons in other parts of ways in life, of course, but there's something about sport that, like, you know, you've got to leave. You've got to do things that may not be rewarding in that moment, and you just got to do them over and over and over, and then the reward, you know, the rewards can come, or they may not come. Like you might not win, or you might not get the result, you might not get the contract, but you also, because of that uncertainty, you've got to learn to find like joy in that process of doing those things that there may not be like a clear outcome or a clear like benefit in that moment, but it's the benefit is like creating a person that is, you know, more resilient, more diligent, and I think that creates like a clearer mind, and you know, a more fulfilled like human, you know, and I do think that's one of the things that like sport can teach us all, whether you want to be a professional or not. You know, it's like finding that joy in the process.
Yeah, 100%. And that fulfillment you mentioned is really interesting. And I think that when you are following something you love, and like us and people listening will know it maybe through rugby or through sport, like growing up, like you know how much you love it as a teenager or whatever. But when you're giving your all to it, you get that fulfillment during the day, like day to day. So like, and even like you say, there might be the outcome and there's a struggle, but you still feel fulfilled. Like you wake up in the morning, like you mentioned with your 2 gym sessions, like I've been there, lots of people have been there, when you're just working so hard in a conditioning session or whatever, it's not like pleasurable to an extent, you know, like it's a grind. But at the end of the day, when you've woken up early, you've gotten after it, you've given it everything you've got, then like you say, you look in the mirror and you feel good about yourself and you feel fulfilled and you feel happy and you feel like you're going in the right direction because you're giving everything that you've got in the pursuit or in the towards something that you really care about and something that you love. So it's like, yeah, you don't know what the future holds. Like none of us do what tomorrow holds, but you know, whether you get success, whether you don't get success, but day to day, if you can keep doing that day to day, you're fulfilled.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. And I feel this world, this culture that we're in, it really pulls our attention to what you need in the future to be okay. And it's like a constant pursuit of like an outcome or something more, that you need to have in order to feel happy or okay. Whereas actually, I'm very strongly of the view that the key to, you know, actual happiness and fulfillment is realizing like that you are fulfilled, and the capacity for your happiness is here and with you more than, or the only place to find happiness is in the here and now. But our minds will tell us it's in the future in some outcome or result, or like a new house or car, or you know, some type of financial stability, or in all these things. And it leads us away from immersing ourselves in like the moment now. And I think taking pride in like how you're living and going about things and doing the things that may be easy to overlook, you know, or hard to do now, but putting your attention and focus into those is a pretty powerful way to live life. And it's, I also, you know, I reckon there's a lot of the unhappiness that's going on right now is because I don't feel we are as a culture taught or that there's enough emphasis on taking pride in how we do the little things. Our world now through social media and all this is like trying to drag us all to like, oh, like, you know, bloody the perception of others, you know, other people's opinions of us, and that we need X, Y, and Z to be of a certain status, or like no one actually cares, man, you know. And we need to flip our mindset around to like, actually, like, what am I doing right now? Like, what can I do to look in the mirror to take more pride within myself of how I'm living my life? And you'll be amazed, man. Like there's little things like making your bed, getting up a bit earlier so you're not rushing in the morning, like folding your clothes and getting them set before you go for the next day, getting back in the routine of like going to the gym and looking after your body and taking inner pride in how you feel in like your fitness and your health, not for other people's opinions, because that doesn't last. Like that motivation doesn't last. It's like finding pride in the little things you're doing. And the reason I think I'm going down this sort of like avenue in this conversation is because it's something that has become so clear to me after I've finished playing rugby. Like, I retired from rugby when the lockdowns happened. And that was a time where most people's routines just disappeared. And so it was double for me and other people in my position who, you know, we went from being rugby players to then, like, I didn't only stop, so like everyone, like their routines and things got sort of a line drawn in them when we got all put in the lockdowns and stuff. But on top of that, I didn't have another season of rugby ahead of me. So I was like, okay, well, everything I know is stopped now. My season's cancelled. I don't have another season of rugby after this. So I don't have anything in my mind to train for and stay fit for in the way that I always have my whole adult life. And so I've got this newfound freedom. I don't have these disciplines of training and fitness and like routine and food and all this that I need to be working towards. And so it was like a double whammy for me. And actually, it really, really took a huge toll, but it like crept up because I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, I got freedom. I can wake up when I want. I don't need to train like I used to. I can eat what I want. And actually, the incremental like creeping up of that and losing sight of how integral those little details and routines and like doing those things that were good for me that I just did naturally as a rugby player, and a lot of them because I kind of had to anyway because they were set out for me, not being aware of, you know, how far away from like my feeling of fulfillment and happiness and like, you know, looking after myself and how integral that was to me. It took me a good year and a half, I reckon, to finally come to terms to be like, okay, like I'm feeling less, my mood is lower, my energy levels are lower. I'm not feeling good about like my, you know, fitness and health. And I'm seeing like my performance and my business is being affected by all these things and in my relationships. And then, but it was like this underlying feeling of that. It wasn't like I hadn't looked it in the eye. And then it was one day I was just like, fuck, I've just been avoiding the most obvious things because the most obvious things, they don't want to be addressed. You know, they're the ones that you overlook because it's like, oh no, but there's always a bigger, it's like, oh no, you know, it's because of the business, the pressures and the stress, or I need this outcome to happen in the business for me to be okay and feel better. And then I was like, nah, man, your mind's fooling you. I was like, then I finally just looked myself in the mirror. I was like, your routine, you don't have a reliable routine. You're not training regularly. You're not like being organized. You like even little things, man. I know it sounds so simple, but like just fucking clean up after yourself when you make food right away. Don't leave it for the day and then have to be like, oh fuck, I gotta do those dishes. Like just having some rigor and pride in all those little things, actually realizing that those were the things that were weighing me down and making me feel not as clear and focused and energized. And so I wrote all these things out. I was like, I'm going to wake up at this time. I'm going to make my breakfast at this time. I'm going to pack my clothes the night before. I'm going to read a book for 10 minutes in the morning, no matter what. I'm going to go to the gym minimum of 4 days a week. And then I set out an evening routine as well. And like, it sounds crazy, but the doing these things and being consistent and taking pride in them, it's life changing, man. I can't explain it. So that's why I've gone on that tangent.
No, I love that. And I talk about that quite a bit as well. And in my new book about having an evening routine and a morning routine and planning out your week and planning out your day. And I've found similarly, I had a period where I was depressed after a shoulder injury and other things happened as well. And anyway, I was just way out of whack. And it was like that. I was just got to a point where I was like, I need to get back to being myself. And having the purpose was one thing. And then I the same look back to when I was a player, like, playing, and I was working out a lot. I was getting up at a certain time and I had to be diligent with my food, and I had to, live my life in a certain way. And that structure and that routine is so, so important for everything, like for mental health and then for performance after that. Like you get yourself to a certain level, and then it helps your performance, be it in your business, be it in whatever it is, your life in general and how you are. And yeah, I just think we have so much control over, we have a lot of control over things, like we can, like you say, getting up early, getting a workout in, reading a book, whatever. And I think something that scares people as well is the discipline. But I like Jocko Willink. I think it's him who says discipline equals freedom, and it's so true. I'm the same now. I have my planner over here, and I like plan out like everything. Get what time I get up at. Get up, breath work, cold shower, meditation, go to the gym, work at 9, and just map it all out. And it's so easy then. I think there's a part of us, a part of our mind, or a part of us that just want to follow something, just want to follow structure, routine.
Yeah. Nah, man, it's so true, and it's not spoken about enough. And it's like there's all these people suffering in the world, like mentally, with depression and like health issues as well. And no one wants to, or not no one, sorry, but the majority, we don't want to look in the mirror. And I can say I had a year and a half. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't like living like ridiculously. I was still doing some training here and there, and like trying to eat well, and like, but not, it was, none of it was consistent. And then I knew, I was like, man, like, it's not good to be like waking up and then rushing to work, and like, and you have these underlying knowledge. But what I challenge anyone who's listening to this to do, like honestly, just sit down and truly look yourself in the mirror and write down some things, and start small. Like maybe start with like 3 things that you can do differently for the next week, and challenge yourself to do it for a week and see how you feel. Like write it in a book. Be like, I'm going to wake up half an hour earlier. I'm going to make my breakfast rather than fucking try to find something in a rush along the way. I'm going to read a book for 10 minutes. Here's one that I would recommend to everyone. Don't go on your phone for the first hour of the day. Honestly, man, our world, it's addicted to these phones because they're designed to be addictive. And we don't realize it because it's just become a norm for your alarm to go off, and you to go and look at your WhatsApp, or maybe check your Instagram DMs or emails. Our brains aren't designed to get flooded with and access to all these people and all this information and all these problems and things to resolve, or people to respond. And we wonder why by like 10 a.m. we're feeling anxious, and that we run out of energy and our moods are low, because we're not fucking designed to be subjected to that. So set yourself a goal. Don't go on your phone for the first hour of the day for a week. See how you feel. One for me is like reading a book, man. Like I used to love reading. Like, what it's like, Brian, like as a rugby player, you train hard, you do all you do all that you can do, but you do have a fair amount of free time around it. You got to recover between sessions. You get full days off during the week. There's times where there's blocks in the season where you get a full week off, and I loved reading, man. Like it was the thing that transformed my life, from being someone who really, really struggled in school. And then my life was rugby, and then I utilized my free time, and I loved reading. But when I started Pure Sport, was so like immersed in all the things I had to do, and I was so much busier than when I was a rugby player, and so many different things to think of. And reading became something that like went, you know, on the back burner for me. And I always had these underlying things like, nah, like reading's good for you, man. Like it's helped make you who you are. Like get back into reading. But then I'd always have excuses like, oh man, nah, it's too busy, man. Like this or that. Set it in your routine. Right, like I write my routine morning and night now, and I'll, even if it's 10 minutes. The world we live in, with all the technology and the way things are now, it's trying to condition our mind to want everything quickly, you know. And what that does is that brings a knock-on effect into all the other things we do in life. There's things in life, I'm sorry, man, but you just can't do like a click on Deliveroo and your meals there. Not everything in life should work that way, you know. Like there's things where you've got to actually sit down, be completely present, and do the work that needs to be done. But when we're hooked in this cycle of things happening so quickly, our brain resists wanting to do or needing to do things that take time. But this is why I'm going down the thing with reading a book. And audiobooks are great. Like I love audiobooks too. Like I'll listen to audiobook at the gym and stuff. But actually reading a physical book, even if it's for 10 minutes in the morning and the night, it's retraining your brain to like just have to immerse yourself in something presently, because you can't read properly while doing other things. And you know, because you get to the end of the page and like, oh fuck, I didn't digest any of that. So reading for me is more than just the information and the cool, like, you know, stuff that you're absorbing through the book. It's like the gym, man. It's like conditioning for your mind to relearn and get good at, again, just doing something presently. And the knock-on effect for that in my life is like, when it comes to things in work that I need to sit down and immerse myself in, when there's all these other things going on, I'm more happy to do that. Reading emails that need to be presently read and digested, I'm better at doing that. And then the knock-on effect is you'll find you make your way out of like certain patterns that you are just caught up in without ever questioning them. You know, like I was in this pattern for ages that it didn't matter what time I finished work and what time my day wasn't done unless I had at least like 30 minutes to an hour of watching Netflix, because that was, in my brain, it had become a habitual sign of, now I've been able to relax now and I've been able to stop. And that's just not necessarily true, but we hold on to these patterns. So reading has been like, there'll be times now where I'm like, oh yeah, I could watch like something on Netflix, but actually I just feel like reading. I just want to read that book that I read for 10 minutes earlier, and I want to read it because I'm interested in it. So you start to like be able to break down certain patterns that have just become habitual, that aren't necessarily good habits, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And the no phone in the first hour in the morning, and then also the last hour before bed, I think is like a golden bullet for feeling good. It's wild. I started that about 2 years ago myself, and it's really wild. And like you say, I would encourage anyone to do that. It's incredible how different you feel. It's mad. It's hard to even put into words, but people, they'll know themselves when they do it. And the reading, it's funny. I fully agree with you too. I was never diagnosed with anything in school, ADHD or anything, but my whole experience as well was being kicked out of class, messing, not being able to sit still. Um, you know, I just wanted to be outside playing and had too much energy. But I never read as a kid, and I was always just wanting to play. And it's funny, in my early, I don't know, it was about 23 or 4, I started reading it, early 20s, I started reading as well. And it's something I, do habitually now also. And it helps you slow down, because like you say, the phone and the just has conditioned us to just have our minds going at a million miles an hour all the time. And like you say, the important, kind of like the important things in life, where if you want to achieve things that are worthwhile, you can't do it quickly. And I know I'm not saying like it's all about achieving or whatever, but if you want to be the person you want to be, like say we're talking about changing habits and looking at yourself and whatever, you can't just click a button and it changes. You know, these habits or these things, they're hard to build in. Or, you know, if you want to build something, like you're building a company, like you're building these different things, it's not like there's not a quick fix where it's like you click certain buttons and then boom, it all happens. And that's something that I certainly fell into as well. We see like overnight success, or you know, like someone blows up or something, and it's just not the way the world works. It really isn't. And I think the companies as well have also conditioned you to doing that, and you know, or to thinking that way, to thinking that oh, you can just overnight just become hugely successful, or you can just overnight this app change your life, or overnight whatever. And it's, we have to be willing to slow down and kind of commit to a long-term way of being or whatever. And the reading, yeah, 100% helps that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't know the actual like stat or anything behind it, but I've seen in multiple different like you know, experts and people talking about like, you know, high performers and successful people, and the one of the most commonly shared traits is the understanding of delayed gratification over instant gratification. And so it's like consciously making choices that are good for you long term over choices that are like easy or rewarding right now. And that's the thing that we're talking about here around actually sitting down and looking in the mirror. You know, when I did that, there were so many things that were easily justified. Like, you know, it's like, oh, now I'm busy and I'm running a business and this and that and the other and da 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 da. And our brains our minds are so good at justifying stuff, man. Like they're like experts of like finding excuses and justifying. But actually, you have to go beyond that chattering day-to-day mind that's real good at making excuses, and really challenge yourself and be like, but is that excuse, is it really an excuse? And your feeling and your heart will tell you the truth. And we're all living, all of us, me included, and you, and the best in the world, like that are up there that, you know, we learn from and look up to, that are doing amazing things. There's always things within us all that, you know, our hearts there behind the scenes be like, hey, like look in this direction and you can improve here. And not like improve for the outcome, just improve for your happiness and your fulfillment right now. And I can honestly say it's confronting and it's hard, but like it's the best thing anyone can do. And to be able to understand and look and choose choices for delayed gratification over instant, like you said, the reading, the taking the time to prepare the meals, the getting up earlier, the going to the gym consistently, not as like box tickers, you know, not as like a means to an end, but actually like with purpose and with you know, like commitment and discipline. Those are the things that build like unbelievable momentum, not only like for the future, but just like actually the impact that they have on us here and now in terms of our clarity of mind, our mood, our energy are profound.
Absolutely. The momentum's a brilliant thing as well. But switching up a little bit, I want to chat to you about pure sports. So as I was saying offline, I was in with a professional team recently chatting to people, and they talked to me about pure sport, and that's, you know, a couple of months ago, and that's where I learned about it first. And I was saying to you as well how I had stopped playing because of concussion. And yeah, they were showing me the products, and then they were explaining about CBD, which I know all about and I'm a huge fan of. I've been using it for a while. And the nootropics, the mushroom blends, which yeah, can help with various different things, is something I'm fascinated with. And I've been looking into myself a little bit over the last couple of years. But chat to me about yeah, pure sport and what you're doing there, and different products?
Yeah, so Pure Sport, our mission is to provide the most trusted, certified and effective natural products to optimize people's health and performance. So the focuses are on mushrooms, nootropics, and CBD. CBD stands for cannabidiol, which is a completely legal and non-psychoactive compound of the cannabis plant. So Pure Sport came to life as the world's first fully batch tested and certified range of these types of products for drug tested athletes and workplace drug tested professionals. And that arose because throughout my rugby career, at the age of 24, I actually was sent for a scan on a knee that was swollen, that had been causing me issues on and off for about a year, just with pain and swelling. And then the scan came back and then we sat down with all the medical staff. This is when I was playing for Edinburgh in the Pro 14 and Heineken Cup. And they were like, yeah, like your knee is absolutely buggered. Like there's no cartilage, you got bone spurs, it's unstable, there's all this fluid. And it's what they described as a degenerative knee, and it was osteoarthritic and all this. And they were like, yeah, like the specialist has advised you should retire and that you're going to need a knee replacement by the time you're 40. And I was just like, what the fuck? I went from, knowing I had some issue with my knee because I had a couple of issues with the meniscus and some surgery and stuff like that previous years. And I just thought it was like something that had built up that I needed to get a clean out surgery or whatever. And so it wasn't what I was expecting. And that was pretty shocking. And I got sent to a couple other specialists to like get second and third opinions on what to do. And the advice by them all was like, yeah, your knee is buggered and you are going to need a knee replacement. And but because I was still functional as a player at that time, they couldn't say, like the club couldn't terminate my contract. But what that does is, any player that knows that the club's sort of looking over their shoulders on, like, if they're worried about a player's long-term like ability to play, what that means for like your next contract and things like that, it's not a very good feeling. So I always tried to like downplay any time that I was having pain or things like that. But what that did was led me on to real reliance on painkillers. And then also like the club was, providing me with cortisone injections to help me get me through the seasons and stuff like that, so I could keep training and playing, and then providing me with lots of painkillers. And it just got to a point where one day, man, like probably doing that for a good 2 years. And at the worst points, in the pro rugby setup, you do 3 sessions a day often. So you got like your main weight session, you got your back session, and then you got your team session. And so I'd be taking 2 painkillers before every single separate session. So like 6 painkillers a day, at least, at times. And doing that for like a couple seasons on end. I remember one day, like, I was like, oh my God, like, this is not a good way to live life. Like my stomach was aching all the time. Like my sleep quality was poor. Like I was having like, really like up and down feelings of my mood, and like because of like the drugs going in and out of my system. And I just realized, man, I was like, this is no way to live life. But all I wanted and all I dreamed of was rugby, and I didn't want to like stop doing it. So I wanted to try find ways to like naturally relieve the pain and get off painkillers. And it wasn't just about like relieving pain. It was trying to understand how I could like optimize my body so I didn't have as much inflammation and pain and stuff like that. So it led me onto like a lot of research, and it opened me up to a world like of natural alternatives that the professional sporting world, like, we just weren't aware of. Or because in the world of sport, you're really like provided information that your club and the current like landscape of professional sport offers you, which is quite like similar across the board. in all different sports, you know, and from like the S&C to diet to recovery, they all sort of like evolve at the same time through across most professional sports. Don't get me wrong, there are some that are more ahead of the curve than others, but you know, most are playing off the same hymn sheet. And in that current time, natural wasn't really something that was being looked at. It was, you know, you got your protein powder, you got your creatine, and you take painkillers, you know, and maybe a pre-workout and your coffee and your caffeine, all of that. But down this rabbit hole I went of like nootropics, mushrooms, CBD, other, you know, things around diet and learning about inflammatory foods and anti-inflammatory foods and all of this. But it also just opened me up hugely to like having much more of a appreciation and understanding of like how integral our, you know, recovery, not just as a box ticker, but as a way of life is. You know, sleep quality and diet and, you know, intake of like certain foods and caffeine. So I really became like immersed in like optimizing my mind and my body. And through that was where my like real interest in like mushrooms, and mushrooms was the first one that really stood out to me as like, there's some really interesting things around like cognitive performance for, you know, memory and focus, but also taking lots of head knocks and stuff, the down the line impact on our brains for like cognitive degeneration that, you know, contact sport athletes go through. So I was really interested in that. Something like a mushroom called lion's mane. There was a lot of scientific research on how it's helping repair neural pathways in the brain. And then another one, reishi, for example, reishi mushroom helping to enhance sleep quality, digestion, and things like that. And then I came across CBD, and I saw that it was scientifically proven to interact with receptors in the body to help the body enhance its natural ability to relieve pain and inflammation, and it also had benefits around like stress and sleep quality. So I just started trialing all these products and researching them and like looking up the risks of like the drug testing stuff and talking to WADA, because you can, like, as a current drug test athlete, you can speak to them, and made my own informed decisions of the risks and stuff that I was willing to take. Because for me, I was like, I want to get away from these painkillers. Like being a human and living well became really clear and important to me, as much as being a rugby player. And the two went hand in hand in my eyes. And then anyway, a few months down the line of really putting these products to the test, it was the first time in years that I was able to actually get off painkillers. My knee was still obviously like struggling because the you know, biomechanics of it and the cartilage being gone and all this, like there was still issues there, but I was able to train and play without the painkillers for the first time. And then what I noticed hugely was like my sleep, my mood, and my energy levels were like, it was almost like over the 2 years of 6 painkillers a day, the gradual build up, I didn't realize how suboptimally I was living, you know, until I had gotten off them, and like they had cleared my system after a couple months. I was just like, fuck, like my energy, like everything, my mood. And I was like, that's when I was like, bro, I cannot go back to those painkillers, man. Like I feel like a new human. And eventually my team doctor, one day when we were having like a checking on my knee and like how it was going, and he would usually give me all my painkillers in, and he was like, oh, you've not been really taking these painkillers, like what's the go? And I was like, oh, I've been taking these CBD products specifically because they were the ones that were most helpful for my pain and inflammation. And then he goes, okay, well, let me speak to the club and look into it. And then he came back like the next day, and he was like, and I knew I was going to have like some challenges from them, but I'd spoken to WADA, I'd done a lot of research, I knew the thresholds and the drug testing, and the risks. And then he was just like, yeah, like, you can't take those, you gotta go back on the painkillers. And I was like, nah, like I've really researched, I'm good, I want to make my own decision. And then it ended up that the club was like, you can't, like, if you take those products, you're in breach of your contract. And I was like, fuck, man, like, I'm a human, like, let me make my choice. Like, I'm not promoting them. I'm not telling anyone else. This is my choice, and I'm going to take my risk, and I'll really equip myself with the knowledge and information, and I feel there's no risk here, and this is what I want to do. And they're like, no, but anyway, I kept taking them. I just didn't tell them. But what that did was, I then had this idea. I was like, wow, I'm going to create the world's first fully batch tested and certified, because this should never be a problem for another athlete. We should be able to take these products, and we should be aware of them, because we just handed out painkillers. That's the only option. And that's how my idea for Pure Sport began. And that's what we achieved in 2019. We had the world's first full range of fully certified for drug tested athletes. And we then, have gone on to develop and bring in new products that, were part of the plan all along, but just took some time as the business grew to have more resource around, like, the mushrooms for, lion's mane for cognitive function and brain health, reishi for sleep and digestion and stress. Cordyceps is an amazing mushroom that's scientifically proven to enhance VO2 max, so endurance and lung capacity. And then we have the balm, which is, replacing painkillers in so many people, from athletes to my grandparents with arthritis. And my whole mission was to create these products to provide the athletes the opportunity to utilize them safely and without being told they couldn't, to optimize their health and their performance, but to use that platform to introduce these to the wider world. Because, not only in sport, but in our Western culture, what I learned was there was a real, like, suppression of, the power of nature, because I think that big pharma and Western medicine had, like, really owned the narrative on what we should do and how we should do things. And it was very one-sided. And I'm absolutely not against certain pharmaceuticals use at certain times, and Western medicine, absolutely not. I think they are doing unbelievable things in certain, places. But as a, like, across the board solution, which I feel is what it's become in the Western culture of, like, if you're in pain, take a painkiller. If you can't sleep, take sleeping pills. If you're anxious, take anti-anxiety. It's the same quick fix mentality that's causing us unhappiness when we're not, we just want our food via delivery all the time. We want success in life and work and physique right away. We want, rather than, going out and meeting people and connecting and actually socializing, we just want to meet a girlfriend online, like, just like that. And the same with our health, and actually we need to question that, and we need to equip ourselves with knowledge. And that's really what Pure Sport's mission is to provide those products, but provide, like, a community and a place of knowledge to empower people to be like, but what can I do to be more optimal, and what can I learn, and what can I implement, and what can I take, and what can I stop doing? So yeah, that's Pure Sport.
That's brilliant. And I am, similarly, when I was younger, we would have been given, like, painkillers, like, actually given them. I was the same way you were too, actually, yeah. And I would have just popped them without even thinking. And you take ibuprofens, you get them over the counter yourself. And a good friend of mine is a doctor and said that he sees so many people, young people in their 30s, and their livers are ruined from taking ibuprofens all the time. Like, they're getting liver transplants, or they're just ruined. And I would have popped 2 or 3 of them after every game, sometimes before games. And then sometimes you get diphene, which is harder stuff. And once again, you just take it without, because you're, and I think as well, a part of the drinking culture, I think drinking problem in rugby is because you go through a lot of pain, like, it's sore. So after a game, you're physically very sore, obviously. And a beer dulls the pain, and having a few beers. And don't get me wrong, if people want to have a few beers, have a few beers, but that can then lead to binge drinking, lead to other things. And the CBD, I just think, is incredible. It's incredible. And like, all players should be aware of it, because it is incredible for dealing with pain. Unreal. And it's also unreal for like stress and just relaxing as well, in that I, as I said, use it myself, and I found even since the concussion, like, I'm good now. But if I'm on the screen on the laptops all day, like doing this, and then I'm working and I'm just busy, and just at the end of the day, after hours and hours, I can just, heck, be a bit fried, and go out for a walk, but take a CBD tablet, and it just helps relax all of that.
Yeah, man. Nah, 100%. And it's people like yourself who are living your life very authentically and wanting to improve and optimize that are the most amazing advocates for how these products work. And because there's too many people out there, and there's also too many brands and companies who are trying to promote things in the way that they don't really work. It's like marketing. It's like, I see brands in the mushroom and the CBD space who they literally try to promote these things as like a miracle pill, or and what it's doing is it's ruining the reputation, and it's ruining the opportunity that we have to like build that knowledge and trust and understanding in people, in a category, in an area, in a type of product that's new to a lot of people. And the problem is we've become so conditioned to like wanting things that like just fix mask an issue. They don't fix it, sorry, that mask an issue. Like you said, like the beer after a game when your shoulder's absolutely buggered, or whatever else, if after a rugby game and you have a beer and it like numbs that pain, or you take those painkillers and it just like masks the pain. What we're trying to do is implement and provide knowledge and understanding around how we can work with our bodies to help relieve and recover from that pain, not mask it. Because when you don't have to look far in life to know that when you mask things and you suppress things, they always come back around to bite you, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to provide products and knowledge that say, hey, this works like this. It works with your body. It works gradually, and it works naturally. And it's not a mask. It's not a quick fix. It's part of your lifestyle now. And so to have people like yourself who understand that way of life, to share it is a really, really powerful thing, because unfortunately there's too much out there that's trying to sell that, but it's like that limitless pill. It's not real, man. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and it's I'm conscious of your time, but last one, it's 100%. It's a piece of the puzzle. It's like stretching after your workout, or it's like eating healthily, or it's like getting good sleep, having good sleep habits. And yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Sometimes you see it all CBD, and people, sometimes I kind of see like, oh, their life is upside down, but it's like, I'll try start taking CBD.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
it's like, no,
yeah,
that's not
yeah,
it. It's,
yeah. Like I got friends, and like they'll come to me and they're working in the city and like working hard, and but I know like they're going to the pub all the time and drinking a lot, and like they'll say, oh mate, like I saw lion's mane's gonna help me like focus and like help with like energy levels and stuff, what do you reckon? And I'll say, look, like it can have those benefits, and yes, like that is some of the benefits that you'll see, but actually as a friend, I reckon like there's things that you can address that are going to have way more of an impact right away than what that product can have. And actually by addressing some lifestyle changes, that, because if it's energy and focus you're looking for, I reckon some of these lifestyle changes are going to impact that far more greatly. And then if you use the lion's mane, then it's going to take that to another level, but again, it's like people don't want to do the things that are like the harder things to do, you know. The more confronting, like, but like the when it comes to the question, like, but how am I living? You know, people are like, oh yeah, but then Pure Sport will give me this lion's mane, and then I'll be like, you know, boom. Or Pure Sport CBD I'll take before bed and I'll sleep like a champ. Yes, it can have these amazing benefits, but actually, man, change some of your ways of living. Start having coffee at like 5 p.m. or, you know, like start waking up at a consistent hour and going to bed at a consistent hour, and you'll sleep better. And then you take CBD and you'll go to another level, you know. But yeah, it's definitely part of the challenge, and it's a challenge that we love, because for us, Pure Sport's so much more than our products. It's like our brand is around like a lifestyle and a community and providing knowledge. And yeah, that's what we love.
Brilliant stuff. Well, congrats on everything so far, and keep up the brilliant work. As I was saying before, a few different rugby players have spoken to me about how much benefit they get from your products, and yeah, likewise, I think it's unreal, and it's definitely the future, and hopefully closer to the present as well.
Yeah, nah, thank you so much, man, and well done on all you're doing with the podcast and your coaching and your writing. And it's amazing, you know, to be able to give insight into different mindsets and perspectives, and which you know, can so often be easily overlooked, but actually, you know, from this conversation, from our, you know, mine and yours perspective anyway, are some of the most important things. So appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Cheers.